usually the biggest challenge for most of us have is accepting, I'm okay. I'm okay. Warts and all. Flaws, mistakes, insecurities, dark side, the inner animal and beast and, toxic male in me. I'm okay. I'm okay. I don't have to get better. I can just maybe work at loving me more, accepting me more, being more what you see is what you get. That is when things really begin to shift powerful. But I found we have to do that with other people. We can't shift that I'm not okay into I'm fine the way I am without the support of people loving us just the way we are.
For me personally, also. You're a saint. The Doing the Work podcast is brought to you by some amazing sponsors who we're very grateful for that allow us to do this amazing podcast that brings you information that helps you to be more connected and be more healthy and helps you grow in your life. The Doing the Work podcast is all about optimal health, community, and personal growth. And here in Bastrop, there's really not a better example of that than Tracy's Drive-In Grocery. The store's been around since 1946. It's got an amazing history. Everyone in the community loves this store. It's a hub of health and connection and really just still continuing to grow and do better things. They just recently added a coffee bar, which was just voted one of the top 3 coffee spots in Bastrop. And there's a lot more that they're planning to do to better serve the community. So if you're looking for some healthy food, some snacks, some of your guilty pleasures, anything like that, go check out Tracy's Drive-In Grocery. The website is www.tracysgrocery.com. Welcome to the Doing the Work podcast. I'm your host, Ethan Schindler, and I'm extremely excited to introduce you to the guest on today's episode. Dr. Robert Glover is the author of No More Mr. Nice Guy, a proven plan for getting what you want in love, sex, and life. And he's the author of Dating Essentials for Men, the only dating guide you will ever need. Dr. Glover is an internationally recognized authority on the nice guy syndrome. He is a frequent guest on radio talk shows and has been featured in numerous local and national publications. Through his book, online classes, workshops, podcasts, blogs, consultations, and therapy groups, Dr. Glover has helped change the lives of countless men and women around the world. As a result of his work, Dr. Glover has helped thousands of nice guys transform from being passive, resentful victims to empowered, integrated males. Along with these personal changes have come similar transformations in these men's professional careers and intimate relationships. Dr. Glover is the creator of Dating Essentials for Men and the director of the TPI University. Dr. Glover comes to us from Puerto Rico, Mexico. He comes from Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, and we're extremely excited to have him on the show. Dr. Glover, I can't tell you how impactful your book is, in particular, No More Mr. Nice Guy has been for me. I recently found myself in a bit of a backslide, a pretty dark place for myself personally, and through that, I kind of had this realization that I had this horrible, what I call people-pleasing behaviors. I kind of realized where I've landed myself. And so through that, and your book is almost 20, we're hitting the 20-year anniversary, getting close to it, right?
Yeah, you're right. It's coming up it'll be 2003, I guess, with 20 years of the print version.
Yeah.
2023, right.
So I wish I had found this book far sooner. I found myself kind of searching books on people pleasing and whatnot, and yours came up in the suggestions, and I read it and I just devoured it and told everyone I knew about it, and so I just am so excited to have you on this show. I appreciate the work that you do, and I can't wait to share your message with the audience.
Thank you for the invitation, and yeah, I love hearing that my books, have an impact on people's lives. And I hear that a lot. So it's nice to know. It was worth the time and effort to write it and put it out there.
Yeah, I recall from the book, you said it took you about 6 years to write it.
Yeah, probably 6-7 years to write it, 3 years just trying to get it published. And then it had a real slow climb at first, but for the last 10 plus years or so, it's really done well. And
that's awesome.
Every year keeps selling more, getting translated into more languages. So yeah, it's having a real worldwide impact.
I love that. Yeah, that's, again, like in terms of just like someone who clearly you spent a large part of your career learning about all of these things. And I love when someone's passion and love and desire turns into something successful and productive for them. So it's exciting to see.
I tell people that everything I write about or talk about is stuff I've struggled with. So I'm a recovering nice guy. I've struggled with that people-pleasing behavior, the conflict avoidance, needing everybody else's approval before I could, make a decision. And then even like my dating books were because I became single in my late 40s and had to learn how to date. And I had no idea how to do it. And I got good enough at it that people started asking my advice on it. So everything I teach, I've struggled with. So I usually can relate to people well, and people that have the same struggles, and they can usually relate to what I'm talking about.
I think some of the best experts in the world, don't understand something just academically. They've had to wrestle with it themselves personally. That's how you become expert at many things. Yeah. Well, my audience may or may not know the kind of the topical nature of your work. And so you talk about it, the nice guy syndrome in your book. And so can you give us just kind of like the brief overview of how you describe the nice guy syndrome?
Well, yeah, just to give the elevator pitch of the nice guy syndrome. And my book is written towards men. And basically I'm talking about codependency. I don't actually use that term in the book, and that was a conscious decision because I wanted to be able to talk about specific behaviors and models without people getting a preconceived idea of, oh, it's this. But I'll say that I get emails from women all the time thanking me for the book, saying that they could relate to it well. So the basic theoretical concepts apply to women as well. But because I for the last 20 plus years, really since the book's come out, I've mainly worked with men. Prior to that, my doctorate's in marriage and family therapy. So I was a relationship therapist for 20 years before that. The nutshell version of nice guy syndrome. A nice guy is a person who, due to inaccurately internalizing emotional beliefs at a young age, believes that they're not okay just as they are. And the kind of theoretical term we use for that is toxic shame, that I believe I'm unlovable, I'm not good enough. And so the nice guy or nice girl is constantly trying to do two things: become what they think other people want them to be, so that they can be loved and liked and get their needs met, and hide anything about themselves that they think other people might respond negatively to. And for most nice guys, that's usually their wants and needs and their sexuality. Those are the things we try to hide from the world. And unfortunately, those are really important things. Our wants, our needs, and our sexuality. And trying to hide or repress them or not let them be too visible usually means that comes out in really not very healthy ways. And I talk about a lot of that in the book, of how nice guys often really aren't so nice because they're inauthentic. They don't tell the truth. They can be passive aggressive. They can actually be very resentful, rageful, and angry because they're not very good at getting their needs met or getting the love they want. So basically, it's the man or woman, because they don't believe they're okay just as they are, trying to get everybody else to approve of them, to be liked, loved, and get their needs met, and hide everything about them that they are fearful of will get a negative reaction.
As I was reading the book, I had this experience with it. It's like this duality of I've never felt so like exposed and kind of like raw and we'll say called out at the same time as feeling validated and affirmed. And I had this two things going on at once while I was reading it, which made it powerful for me. I mean, it was emotional to read it.
And that's a common dynamic. I spoke to one of my coaches' online group last night. And the first guy to ask me a question said he just read my book, finished it a week or so ago. And he said, this thing just turned his life completely upside down, which it can do that. It can shake up the old paradigm or roadmap that we've had since childhood of who we are, how the world works. And all of a sudden, that's blown up. That happens, to any major life change. I mean, if you have a near-death experience or you decide to stop drinking, or there's a lot of things that can truly shatter our old paradigm, our old operating system. Sometimes we're able to find a new one that helps replace the old one. And sometimes we don't. Sometimes we just, what do we do next? Right. But either way, there's a time period in there where maybe a few years even, where we go from the old paradigm's been ripped away from us. All right, what's now? And then how do we start integrating this new paradigm into our life? And what's that going to look like? And how do we do things differently? And it really helps if we have a good guide, maybe a written form, and good mentors and good coaches to help us do that. But what you experience is pretty common, is we realize, and basically, oh, fuck, this doesn't work. And then, oh, how cool, there's something that will work. And it's a good feeling. And I think one of the things I say in No More Mr. Nice Guy, don't try to do this work alone. We didn't become nice guys in social isolation. We're not going to get cured from it just trying to figure this out on our own. Because a big part of doing the nice guy recovery work is getting around safe people, beginning to reveal ourselves, release the toxic shame, and get more accurate feedback about who we really are. And I've seen it just over and over and over again. When I was in private practice, I was leading 5 men's groups a week, and I've led lots of workshops. I've been in my own men's programs. I'm in my own men's program now that I attend as a participant. And there's something about finding out you're not alone. You're not terminally unique. You're not the only one that has this frustration, this struggle, this fear, this shame, this self-limiting belief. And you see these other people that have the same stuff as you, and you go, not only am I not alone, but that person's okay. That person's okay. So maybe I'm okay too. Maybe there's nothing really wrong with me. I just, was trying to follow the wrong roadmap. That's all that it really is.
And I think that's what's powerful about your work is that, so like, it sounds like other people who just go, like, I read a lot of books. I read a ton of books and, there's some good books and there's some not so good books out there, but very few of them ever actually change you. Rarely do they change who you are or how you do things or whatever. And I think what's really special about your work and this book is that if you happen to be Mr. Nice Guy, if it's a correct description of who you are, and after you read the book, you can no longer, it's almost like you can't be the same anymore. You've now have a new level of awareness, and you're going to have to do something different, which I really appreciate. You've got the 46 action, the action items to do throughout the book.
Breaking free activities,
Yes, breaking free activities, which I'm currently working through myself, and not all the way finished with them, but I'm finding them like helpful, and again, next step would be, like you said, probably finding a group or getting involved in some other activities.
I can't over encourage that enough to get, and especially for men, we men tend to be pretty isolated. And when the book came out, my publisher sent me on a book tour across the United States, and I did a lot of interviews, and a lot of people asked me, Robert, do you think there'll be a worldwide men's movement like feminism? And I said, no, I don't really think so, for a few reasons, but the primary one is I didn't see one unifying factor to bring men together. Now, 20 years later, I've been saying I was right and wrong. I was right that there's not one unifying factor, but actually maybe there is. But I was wrong, but I think there is actually a worldwide men's movement happening. It just it doesn't look like that. And what that is, I think that one unifying factor is men need tribe. We need connection. We need to be with other men. We need to work with other men, struggle with other men, be held by other men, be sharpened by other men. And men are looking for that, even if they don't know that's what they're looking for. Maybe they go join a martial arts class, and they don't realize they're looking for connection with men, but they go get it. Maybe they go to a 12-step recovery program, and they end up connecting with men more deeply. Maybe they go to a divorce support group through their church and connect with men more deeply. Maybe they go to a pickup boot camp thinking they want to learn how to, pick up women. But the truth is they meet a bunch of guys that, let's go hang out together and do this thing. And, maybe there's all kinds of different ways that men are seeking out men. And often you don't really see that big picture because, well, that's just martial arts. Well, that's just, alcohol recovery, or that's just divorce support group, or that's just Mankind Project, or that's just, pickuppers. But it's really men seeking men. So that's why I really stress. Our ancestors didn't go it alone. The lone wolf did not exist. The lone wolf did not get to pass on that genetic code. We're tribal by nature, and we need tribe. So yeah, I preach all the time. We men need to go find tribe. And so men's groups, and luckily with the internet, there's so many of them now. It's amazing.
And I think some guys stumble into it. I'm a veteran. I'm currently in the National Guard, and you hear about a lot of guys who really struggle once they leave service.
I can imagine.
And I'm wondering, hearing you speak, I hadn't really put two and two together, but I'm wondering if it's because they lost, some of that tribe. And, there's a large
men struggle when they leave. Men struggle when they leave prison because they go, number one, from having their life very regimented, which the military does that too. But yeah, they go from having probably a depth of connection that we don't have on the outside. And so recidivism, men going back to prison, men getting out of the military. My son's a vet. He was in Fallujah in Iraq in the Marines, which has made me more sensitive to vets and their needs. And more vets are killing themselves every year than have died in any recent war. And that's sad. That's sad. Probably for many reasons, PTSD, but maybe as much as any is lack of tribe and lack of connection and lack of purpose.
Yeah, I can say that's true for me. In fact, as I was reading the book, I was finding myself contemplating. There are times when I'm not people pleaser, I'm not Mr. Nice Guy, and it's like when I get to put on my uniform, it's like this. I'm a different person. When I'm in uniform, I'm not that way. And it's frustrating to me because I know I'm capable of it, but in my own kind of personal / civilian life, I'm horrible Mr. Nice Guy. And it's really problematic.
I'm smiling. Let me tell you a story. I was working with a couple. This has been 20 plus years ago when I was in private practice and doing a lot of couples therapy. And I started out working with the woman in the relationship. She came to me first. And she was frustrated in her marriage. They'd only been married a few years. And her husband came in for a few sessions, and he was a cop. And how they met is that she was a dispatcher in the local police department, and he worked there, and that's where they met. And she fell in love with him, and they got married. And then I don't remember why, but she changed jobs. Maybe she didn't have to work anymore or whatever. Maybe they had a kid. I don't remember exactly. But she quit being the dispatcher. So now she's at home. And, her husband comes home from work, takes his uniform off and puts on his civilian clothes and does what he does. And she said he changed when he was in uniform. When she saw him at work in uniform, she fell in love with this guy. And she said, I the only way I ever get to see my husband the way I fell in love with him if I go on ride-alongs with him. That he can take me out and I'll see the way he interacts with people. He stands up straight. He's strong. He's assertive. He's powerful. He comes home to me and she goes, everything's, yes, dear, whatever you want to do. What do you want to do tonight? Okay, that'll be fine. Doesn't matter to me. And she's going, I want my husband back. I only see him when he puts his uniform on. And so, that you're the same thing, that something about that uniform energetically, you probably stand up a little bit taller. You're sharper. You've been trained to respect the uniform. I mentioned my son was in the Marines. Even though I've never been in the military, when I would go visit him at Camp Pendleton in California, just driving on the base, going through the guard station, me driving on the base to go visit him, I had a reverence, a respect for the uniform and what it represented. And I'd never been in the military, and I still could feel that energetic state of being on a military base. And I liked it. It felt good.
I think it has something to do with expectation. Like you mentioned, like you're kind of indoctrinated into, how, through boot camp and, other things.
They tear you down to build you back up. Right.
Right. And so are we also in our personal lives. So it kind of brings me to the next thing that I was wanting to talk, the making of a nice guy. How are nice guys created? In some ways, it's an expectation or something that's set through their lives. It's kind of nurtured, so in some ways nurtured into them, but also the other part is kind of nurtured out of them in some ways, right? And so I was kind of curious, could you talk a little bit about how a nice guy is created?
Yeah, that was really the question that intrigued me when I started just kind of investigating this, because I basically my second wife told me after a couple years of marriage, she said, everybody thinks you're such a nice guy, but you're not. You treat me badly, you embarrass me, you're passive aggressive, you hurt me. She goes, you got to go get help. I'm going to leave you if you don't go get help. And I'm thinking, I was in my early 30s and it was my second marriage and I loved her. And I thought, well, I don't want to lose her. I thought, I don't know why I'm the one going to therapy. She's the one who's unhappy all the time, angry all the time, yelling all the time, doesn't want to have sex anymore, moody. And I'm thinking, and I'm the one that has to go get therapy? So I actually went to therapy trying to find out why being a nice guy didn't make my wife appreciate me more and didn't make her love me more and want to have sex more like she did before we got married. So luckily I landed in some really good situations. I actually got into a 12-step group for sex addicts. My wife said, "You're a sex addict." I quickly found out I wasn't. I wasn't having enough sex to be a sex addict. But for the first time in my life, I was in a safe group. It was all men. And I started revealing myself, just sharing everything about me that I never shared with anybody. I grew up in a fundamental Christian church. At that time, I had 2 degrees in religion. I'd been a minister for 8 years. I wasn't at that time. But, I was like, the whole thing, put up a good front, look good for everybody. Don't let anybody see you make a mistake. I found a safe place to start revealing myself. I started working with a therapist. And in my very first session with her, she taught me about boundaries. I was in early 30s, second marriage. I already had a PhD in marriage and family therapy. I'd never heard of boundaries before. And then I joined a men's group, and I started hearing about things like making my needs a priority and taking good care of myself. And that's where I discovered the concept of covert contracts, my giving to get. Oh, if I give this to other people, they'll give back to me in return. And so I started being aware of these things, and I started noticing men coming to me for therapy were saying the same things I was. So, it might be the single guy. And I couldn't relate quite so much to them, but they're saying, I'm a nice guy. I treat women well. I listen to them talk about their problems. I'm different than all the jerks that they complain about their exes they keep going back to. And women just tell me, someday some woman will be so lucky to have you as a boyfriend. And the guys are saying, how come they don't want me as a boyfriend? How come they wouldn't be lucky to have me? And the guys are, what am I doing wrong? And then the guys in a relationship are coming in with maybe by themselves or with their wife or girlfriend saying, I'm a nice guy. I'm one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. I treat her better than her ex. I'm raising her kids. I do everything to make her happy. It's never enough. It's never good enough. She's never happy. When's it going to be my turn? When's she going to want to have sex again? And I'm thinking I could finish her sentences. So I started a No More Mr. Nice Guy weekly group. And I started writing. I didn't set out to write a book, but I just wanted to write things I was coming to understand about me. And one of those things was, how does this happen? How do guys become like this? So that's always been a core question for me as well. And at first I thought most were like me. And that is maybe disconnected from father, overly connected to mother, trying to be the good man, the good boy. And I thought, and I'm what I call the I'm so good nice guy. I think I'm a really good guy. Everybody should want to be like me. Everybody should. But I soon came to find out there were lots of other family configurations that boys grew up with. Some boys grew up with a nice guy father, a controlling, angry mother. Some guys grew up without a father. Some guys grew up to be what I call the I'm so bad nice guy. Maybe they started rebelling at an early age. They did drugs. They dropped out of school. They were always in trouble. Maybe been in jail. Maybe got kicked out of the military, whatever. And then something shifted. Maybe they got in the military and got straightened out. Maybe they got married, got straightened out. Maybe they found religion and got straightened out. But still, up the surface, they think, I'm a terrible person. If people find that out, they're going to find that out. All I can do is try to be nice, try to be good. So there's lots of different things that contribute to, being a nice guy. And so there's no one, formula that every guy will relate to. But here's what I see. I often find that many of the men who identify as nice guys often are pretty easygoing, kind, generous people by nature. My mother would often tell women I was dating, Bobby never did like conflict. And every time she'd say that, I think she was saying it to the women as, treat my son well. But I'm thinking, who the fuck likes conflict? Why would anybody like conflict? I never did, but there's
Right.
people who do. My wife
Right.
loves conflict. I think every woman I've been with has liked conflict. They like to fight. I'm going, why do we have to fight about this? Can't you just tell me you would like more of this or less of that, and we can work on it together? But no, let's fight about it first. I'm going, why? So, but that's me. That's my temperament. That's how I am. That's my genetic inheritance. To have that tendency. It's who I am. So that's part of it. What I'll give you is a little bit of what we'll just call child development 101. And this applies to everybody, not just nice guys, nice girls. But every child comes into the world completely, totally needy, dependent, and vulnerable. And our brains aren't even close to being finished developing. In fact, the only part of our brain fully online at birth is a part on the brain stem called the amygdala. And that's survival. It's fight, flight, freeze. It controls respiration, heart rate. And it also, the theory is that it internalizes emotional memory. So for our first 2 to 3 years of life, before we have word memory or even able to have picture memory in our brain, we store up emotional memory. So every experience a child has that is uncomfortable, painful, frightening in any way, doesn't matter if you had the best parents in the world, you're going to have experiences where you were cold, where you were hungry and nobody fed you, when your diaper was dirty and nobody changed it right away, or where you didn't get picked up and held, and maybe worse, maybe you got yelled at, maybe you got shaken, maybe you got left long periods of time, maybe your parents were addicts, maybe your mom was depressed, maybe your dad was never in the picture, maybe they were immature. Children are so dependent, but yet, we're vulnerable to all of these things that happen to us. All of that for every child, every human being, gets internalized in the emotional operating system of a primitive part of our brain. Now, children, even before they can think about stuff, have concepts, they have emotions. And emotionally, children are narcissistic. They are the center of their world, center of their universe. They believe they are the cause of everything that happens to them, for good or for bad. And so they're very grandiose. Every baby's this way. They're just narcissistically grandiose. The world revolves around them, even before they have words to go with that. That's the emotional makeup of a child. So the child believes they cause everything that happens to them, for good or for bad. So every painful thing, I must be the cause of that. Again, it's not words, it's emotion. That's what internalized toxic shame is. It's an emotional belief system, an emotional operating system wired into a real tiny little primitive part of our brain on the brainstem. Now, as the child develops, that amygdala, that emotional memory, is wired into every other part of the brain, into the prefrontal cortex that doesn't finish developing in men until about 25 years old, which is a real good reason not to send men under 25 into war zones, because their prefrontal cortex, their cortex, the decision-making part of their brain isn't online. So they're more of the emotional parts of their brain are affected by being in traumatic situations. So what every child does, even before they can think about it, they start developing a couple of things. Defense systems to help try to make them feel better right now when they're in pain. Maybe they suck their thumb. I did. I sucked my thumb till I was in kindergarten. That probably says something about childhood trauma. Maybe they cry. Maybe they withdraw. Maybe they sleep a lot. Maybe they eat a lot. They'll do something to feel good right now. And using a very primitive part of their brain, they try to do anything that will prevent these things from happening to them again in the future. Again, this isn't thought out. It's just purely instinctual, reactive type stuff that gets wired into our emotional operating system that becomes, as our brain starts coming more online, we start believing this is how I am and how the world is. And we never question that operating system, that paradigm. For example, if you're a small child and your needs seem to not be that important to the people around you, or other people seem to have, maybe dad's an alcoholic, so he's got a lot of needs. Maybe you have a sibling that's sick and has a lot of needs. And so you're trying, I'll be needless and wantless. I'll never be a moment's problem. I won't ask for anything. I'll hide my needs and wants. I'll always try to, if mom is smiling, I'll try to always do that thing that makes her smile. If mom's frowning, I'll try to never do that thing again that makes her frown. We start developing these survival mechanisms that, because we develop them at such an early age, we carry them into adolescence, where they tend to get more solidified. And then we carry that solidified version into young adulthood. And again, it often isn't till something comes crashing down around us that we start questioning, is there a different way of doing this? Maybe it's when we can't get women to talk to us, so we can't get into relationship. So we go looking for answers. Maybe we're in relationship, but we keep fighting all the time, or our partner never wants to have sex anymore, and we go looking for answers. Maybe it's when the relationship's coming apart. We go looking for answers. Maybe it's when we're struggling with addiction, or we're struggling living up to our potential, or we're broke, or we're sick, something, we're depressed, whatever. We go looking for answers. And fortunately, for many people, we can stumble on to something that gives us a different worldview than what we developed as little infants. And as you say, that can be like shattering. It's like, wait a minute, this thing, the way I've been living for the last 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, 60 years, was all because I internalized some belief systems when I was 3 weeks old. Yeah, that's true for everybody.
Right.
But the good news is that we can begin to overwrite our emotional operating system. Maybe we won't, I don't know, maybe we can't completely change it. There's some pretty intriguing new research using psychedelics and plant medicine to help actually create some powerful shifts, especially around PTSD and things like that. So maybe there's some, ages-old medicines that have existed forever that used in proper therapeutics situations really can help us overwrite, and change that emotional operating system. So, we really do live in a time right now that there's some really powerful things happening to help us shift all of that stuff we internalized and have believed since we were a few weeks old.
And, that was the part that really hit me, when I was reading it. It's like, you gave different examples of how different people might end up this way. And you even in this conversation kind of described it. And I really wanted the audience to hear, maybe someone struggling with this, I wanted them to hear, well, how might this happen to you? Because like one of my questions is like, why didn't I know until things kind of crumbled down for me recently? Why didn't I know it before then? Like, why couldn't I put my finger on it?
You can't know, because our ancestors grew up in a tribal context where children were initiated into what they needed to know to live successfully, to live masterfully. And it's called initiation. And the closest thing we have initiation nowadays is military. And, you're taught how to know what you need to know to fight a war, or, manage logistics, or fix an airplane, or whatever. But we don't have training in life skills for young children. It doesn't exist. Right. And so, we go through an educational system that teaches us to memorize a bunch of shit. And then, nowadays you don't even have to memorize anymore because you can look it up and find it a lot quicker. But it doesn't teach life skills. Like, it doesn't teach what do you do with your emotional states, or what do you do with insecurity, or how do you make friends? How do you talk to people? Anybody here ever had a class when they were an adolescent of how to make friends, how to talk to people,
No.
how to get along with other people, how to ask for what you want, how to surround yourself with people who want to help you get your needs met? I talk about this stuff to adults all the time, and they're like going, wow, this is a novel concept.
Right.
So, it'd be great if we got taught this stuff before adolescence.
Well, and I guess, life is a teacher. Sometimes pain and suffering is the ultimate teacher. You have to kind of fall flat on your face.
It has been for me.
So once someone has this awareness, someone understands, maybe they identify with what you just said, like what kind of, makes a nice guy. What are the, you had mentioned, you also earlier, there was like, you live with covert contracts, so if you've been living with covert contracts and you're having some of the behaviors that are identified to be in line with being Mr. Nice Guy, how does a person reclaim their power? I know I'm working through the 46 steps, but maybe there's some key ones that you could share.
And let me just say something about the covert contracts, because you brought them up again. A lot of people have told me that's one of the most enlightening parts of the book. And that information was for me as well when I was going to a men's group and started realizing, wait a minute, how I'm living in the world is fundamentally manipulative and dishonest. So basically, I'll even spell this out clearer than it is in the book. Most nice guys have 3 fundamental covert contracts with themselves, with people around them, with the world, with God. And the 3 are simply this. Covert contract number 1, and they're all if-then propositions. And that is, if I'm a good guy, I will be liked and loved. And for most men, that means, and the woman I want to have sex with me will want to have sex with me. I'll be a good guy. And then, of course, people will like me and love me. All of these have many fallacies. All 3 covert contracts have a number of fallacies built into them. Like number 1, what does it mean to be a good guy? Whose rules, whose guidebook are we following? And even the greatest people out there, the highest quality, whatever that looks like, not everybody likes them. Some people think this person's amazing and other people think it's a spawn of Satan, So not everybody's going to be liked. But nice guys think if I'm just a good guy, everybody will like me, especially the people I want to like me.
Right.
So that's covert contract number one. Covert contract number two, and this is really, really insidious. If I meet other people's needs without them having to ask, then they will meet my needs without me having to ask. And this is all the giving to get that nice guys do. Oh, I'll help you do this, or I'll listen to you talk about that, or I'll fix that for you, or I'll do this, or and we're thinking in return they'll like us, they'll appreciate us, they'll value us, and they'll then be there for us when we have needs. Now, unfortunately, nobody else knows these contracts exist because they're covert. People don't know that we're doing these things to help them, and because of the covert contracts, nice guys tend to often pick some pretty broken people. Because we got to have people that need help for us to help them, right? People with financial problems, with moods, with relationship issues. Oh, I can help. I mean, this is me. That's kind of my number one seduction technique, my superpower. I'm a good helper. But we're giving all this to other people, hoping they'll give, appreciation back. They'll value us, love us, and they'll help us meet our needs. But the problem is we nice guys usually rarely ask for what we want. So nobody knows what our needs are. They're not going to read our mind and try to figure it out. And often nice guys are terrible receivers. We think we're doing something wrong if we let people do for us because everybody else's needs are more important than ours. People are going to hate me. People are going to think negative if I have needs. So this covert contract doesn't work for many reasons. The third covert contract is if I do everything right, whatever that means, then I will have a smooth, problem-free life. Now, this is really Peter Panish because, number one, you can't do anything right. Every great, guide, the Bible, the Torah, the Quran, they all say nobody gets it right? Nobody's perfect. But the nice guys think, I can be perfect. I can get it right. Then I'll have a smooth, problem-free life. Unfortunately, life isn't smooth and problem-free. Never has been, never will be. The nature of all existence is chaos and change. But nice guys, because it makes us anxious to not have everything smooth, and we're always trying to smooth everything out. That's why we don't do conflict well. We can't resolve problems in relationship. At work, we don't speak up for ourselves. We don't rock the boat. We go along to get along. So these are all core stuff that nice guys struggle with due to our covert contracts. And people say, what do you do with those? Well, you make them overt. You ask for what you want. You be yourself. You be what you see is what you get kind of guy. You surround yourself with people who want to help you meet your needs. You acknowledge your flaws and shortcomings and mistakes rather than hide them. You become real. Now, get back to your question of what are some things to do. And I've already said this, but I repeat it. Go find safe people. Don't try to do this work alone. What I've noticed about nice guys is most of us are in our heads a lot anyway. Like you, a lot of men I work with go read a lot of books. I sometimes have to give guys the assignment, no new books for 90 days. No, don't put that on me, And I usually tell the guys, you probably already have enough information to change your life. And what I found is people that do read a lot, especially of self-help books, often have what I call a ruminating brain, where their brain is always spinning, rehashing the past, going into the future, measuring, comparing, always in negative ways. And this creates a real internal angst. And we think there's an answer out there. If I go find that answer, another Tony Robbins seminar, another workshop, another self-help book, another hypnosis thing, another meditation program, then everything will feel normal. But all that really actually does is after you've done all of that and read all those books and done all those seminars, you still have that inside of you that doesn't feel right. And you go, how come everybody else gets better when they do these things? I don't. There's something wrong with me. So actually, that is almost can become an addiction of seeking more and more help and information when the truth is you're okay. You're okay as you sit right now. And that's usually the biggest challenge for most of us have is accepting I'm okay. I'm okay. Warts and all. Flaws, mistakes, insecurities, dark side, the inner animal and beast and, toxic male in me. I'm okay. I'm okay. I don't have to get better. I could just maybe work at loving me more, accepting me more, being more what you see is what you get. That is when things really begin to shift powerful. But I found we have to do that with other people. We can't shift that I'm not okay into I'm fine the way I am without the support of people loving us just the way we are, affirming us just the way we are. And again, that can happen with a coach, a therapist, a therapy group, support group, 12-step group, but anywhere where you can go practice revealing you and getting more accurate information about who you are and learning to build relationships with other people based on you being you and them being them, not based on something we're going to try to be so people will like us. So that's where I tell people to begin. Go find those safe people.
And that makes a ton of sense because, the thing that I can identify with what you said is that if I reveal these parts of me, I'm the bad guy version of what you were talking about.
I'm so bad, nice guy.
Yeah, I'm so bad.
I saw your tattoo on your arm. I assume maybe you were.
I was the kid who was constant trouble as a kid. I couldn't get my act together. I was always in trouble, and somehow I developed the concept of like I'm just a bad person. I'm not good, and so in order for me to overcome this somehow, I need to be the nice guy. I need to please people. I need to do it that, I need to show them, no, I am a good guy. But inside, I didn't really feel that way. And so it makes sense what you're saying is because if I can expose myself, if I can expose those things about myself, I find to be dirty or shameful or whatever else. And then there's a group of people who see that and hear it and they don't shun me. They don't run me off or think I'm some sort of disgusting person. Then you realize, oh, okay. Like you mentioned, I am okay. There's nothing like horrible about me.
Well, and you hear other people tell stories that they think are horrible about them, and you're listening going, that's not so terrible. I like them. In fact, I like them better now that they told me that story. And that's maybe a paradox that people just don't see coming when they get into some kind of support system, support group, or people practice being themselves, is you start finding out, the more that person tells me about their inner demons or their past mistakes or their insecurities, the more I like them. And that is the truth. The people that let you see who they really are the easiest to get close to. And that goes, oh, maybe they'll still like me if they know all these things about me. I'll tell you a quick story. This was an early experience for me in my own recovery that was like, I tell it because it just shifted everything for me moving forward. Like I said, I grew up fundamental Christian church, critical, angry father. I grew up during the era of angry feminism in the 60s and 70s. I grew up with a lot of external messages, hide everything. Don't let anybody see anything bad about you, anything negative. So I was a pretty good hider, which made me really inauthentic and a liar. Like I said, I started going to a 12-step group in therapy early on after my then second wife said, I'm going to leave you if you don't go get help. I had an experience pretty early on where I had a pretty dark sexual impulse that I didn't act on it, but it scared me to even think, wow, I can't believe I even thought that. And now the old me would have pushed that way down. Oh, no, don't let that ever come up to the surface again. That's scary. Now, the new me that was beginning to evolve, because I was going to a 12-step group and being open, I was going to therapy and being open. And believe me, I never would have revealed that to a partner in relationship, that dark sexual impulse. And I thought, I think I need to just go talk about it. So I went to my 12-step group and I shared this dark sexual impulse. I said, I didn't act on it, but it kind of scared me that I even thought it. And I think I'm a bad person for even thinking that. And, this is a group of men that are like, can't quit picking up hookers on Highway 99 or have molested their stepdaughter or, these are guys who may be one step away from prison for their sexual behavior.
Right.
And they're all, and I'm going, I had this impulse. And they're probably good. And in a 12-step group, they say, thank you for sharing, Robert. So I'm thinking, that's all? That's it? Nobody thought I was a terrible human being. Nobody chased me out of group. Nobody even looked at me like, oh, you're really fucked up, man. I had nothing. Then they go on and tell their stories that are even worse. And I'm going, I don't think they're bad. And so, okay. So I had a therapy appointment with a woman therapist right after that, that meeting. So I thought, okay, that went actually pretty well. I told it, nothing bad happened to me. And in fact, I feel better having told it. So I went and sat down with my therapist. And I said, I had this really dark sexual impulse this week. And I said, here it is. And I said, that really scares me that I had this impulse. And my therapist looked at me kindly with this gentle, kind of older woman face. And she said, well, let's talk about that and see what that's about. So we just kind of explored it. What were the origins of that impulse and what does it mean? And what do I need to pay attention to? And I didn't get shamed or scolded or told I was bad. I thought, wow, this is kind of cool stuff. This being open and transparent feels good. So I'm driving home and I think, I'm batting 1,000. I'm a baseball fan. Even I think I need to tell my wife this too. I'm batting 1,000. Even if she goes off, I'm still batting 666. I mean, that's not bad at all.
That's Hall of Fame numbers.
That's Hall of Fame. Nobody's even ever had those numbers. That's beyond Hall of Fame. So, and I used to say to my then second wife that her middle name ought to be Overreact, because that's what she did in every situation. It's just, she blew everything up out of proportion, kind of like my father did. So I'm driving home and thinking it scares me, but I got to tell her. So I get home. She's at home. I said, I need to talk to you about something. Took her back to the bedroom. I remember sitting down on her bed and I said, I need to tell you, I've already talked about this with my 12-step group. I've already talked about it with my therapist, and I need to tell you. And I told her what the dark sexual impulse was and what I'd talked about, and what I explored with my therapist. And she just listened, and I got done. And she said, that doesn't surprise me. She says, it kind of scares me. And I'm glad you told me. And she never brought it up again. I mean, that was it. I'm thinking, how come I didn't figure this out a long time ago? That just be real. Just let people see who you are. Because I'd already released a lot of the shame about it in those safe groups. And I could go tell her without a lot of shame. And I could just tell her, matter-of-factly, what I'd done to look at it and address it. And she felt safe because of that, rather than feeling, oh my goodness, I'm married to a pervert of some kind. And so that was such a powerful experience that said the benefit of safe people to just reveal you, be accepted, get more accurate information that you're not bad, you're not evil, you're not sinful, you're not going to hell. You're just human. You're just you. You're perfectly imperfect. You're just a perfectly flawed human being. And that's what we all are. And that's so liberating.
It is. And I think most people, I mean, I'm definitely guilty of this, and maybe a lot of other people are, but we know that people are inherently flawed. We're just human beings. Mm-hmm. That's just part of being. So if someone isn't being forthcoming and honest about it, I'm sitting here thinking, like, I know something's wrong. And so I'm probably making up what aren't they telling me? I'm making up a story about what it might be or something like that. And it has really relief. There's a lot of relief that comes when someone just lays it out there for you. You're like, oh, I don't have to guess anymore. I knew it was something. I just don't have to guess what it is.
I've got a buddy that, it's like, you need to know him. He'd come down to visit here in Puerto Vallarta, come over to my house. We'd have dinner and have some drinks and swim in the pool, play with the dog, whatever. This buddy, everything was, it's a beautiful day. Everything's great. Isn't life great? And finally, one time I said, I don't believe you. I don't believe your life could be that fucking great. He said, so I can't really know you because everything, isn't life great? Isn't life amazing? Another wonderful day. He goes, yeah, I've actually had a pretty crappy day. I go, oh, thank you. I can actually relate to you now. And he goes, I said, what was your crappy day about? And he started telling me the stuff he was dealing with. And I go, I can see where that was a real struggle. And I can relate to you because I've had those exact same struggles myself. And then I said, okay, here's something else that you've skirted the issue. I've never, there's something missing here in what you're telling me. What is missing that I know something's out. And then he told me some stuff about, some marital issues from his past and how he even hid the fact that he'd been married one time. So he'd been married a few times, but he hides completely one of the marriages from people even knowing about it because he'd been unfaithful in it. So he never, I'm going, I can relate to you, man. That the marriage didn't work, you were unfaithful, blah, blah, blah. You're human. I can relate to that. I've been down that road. And once he started being real, it's kind of like, all right, now I like you coming over. Now I actually enjoy that with you. I say no more Mr. Nice Guy. I refer to nice guys as Teflon men. We want everything so smooth, we don't want any, but I said people relate to each other's rough edges. If we trim off all our rough edges, there's nothing for people really to relate to get close to have a connection with. And so again, this work isn't about becoming better people. It's not about becoming good. It's just becoming ourselves, loving ourselves the way we are and being more open, visible, and transparent and letting people like the us that we are, just as we sit, warts and all. And now that feels good. That feels connecting. So like you mentioned, you have the I'm so bad, nice guy pattern. What if you were in a group of people and you were safe enough to just reveal everything in your life you'd ever done that made you feel like a bad person? And what if other people then told similar stories of doing the same thing? Or other people said, I wasn't so terrible, or hey, but you don't do that anymore. What if you just got accurate feedback and all of a sudden you realize, and these guys wanted to go hang out with you and, wanted to go camping with you, wanted to shoot guns with you and wanted to, have a beer with you or watch a game with you. And you go, wait a minute, why did I hide all this stuff? Now that they know everything about me, it's kind of like they want to be with me. They want to know me more. But again, most of us, it takes something to really shake it up to actually start realizing everything works better if we just put it out in the open.
Yeah, and I think it takes one of your courageous friends or a courageous person to be the first one to break the ice. I think, again, going back to, what I know about the military is like there's always the one guy who just doesn't really care that much, and he puts all his stuff out there on the table and he breaks the ice, and it makes it okay for you to everyone else to kind of do that,
And that's one reason I love groups. I love men's groups, because one guy will share. I have so much shame about this, but I just need to say, I'm addicted to porn. A guy will say that. And maybe nobody in the group's ever brought up porn. In fact, even what I used to would do, I'd say, all right, you want to work on that? And I would say, let's go sit down on my computer. And I would have the guy show me the porn they look at. And we'd talk about the porn like we're talking about cars or sports. Just like in release, nobody wants to show the porn they look at to their therapist, right, let alone a group of men behind them looking over their shoulder, right? But it releases so much shame that all of a sudden that compulsion just begins to disappear. But one guy will say, yeah, and one guy will have the courage to show me and the other guys the porn they look at. And then the other guys will go, hey, check out this website, or log into that web. And all of a sudden, everybody in here is an expert on porn. They all know they have their favorite, but nobody ever even said a word about having issues around porn. They kept it secret. They kept it hidden. So one guy having courage, and next thing you know, we're spending weeks helping these guys, take the shame out of looking at naked pictures online and begin to release the compulsion around it, because one guy had the courage to do it.
Which is why I'm seeing the power. Again, like I think that the group work is massively important. And I hope people listening, choose to engage in that themselves. I'm going to shift gears just a little bit. As I was researching, getting ready for this phone call, I saw the Total Personal Integration Institute on your website, and that term, total personal integration, is very intriguing to me. It's like and I'm just curious, what is that? How do you define that, and what's the institute?
Well, it's basically, I call it TPI University, where I have online classes.
University.
Yeah, many different subjects. All the way from relationship to dating, to ruminating brain, to work and career, where I've just created a number of courses. And actually, I'm in the process of just started this week looking at how I'm going to revamp a lot of things and create a membership program where everything I've ever created, written, recorded, shot, everything's going to be involved and contained in this one container of a membership program. But that's going to be a slow process, pulling all that together. Total personal integration, as much as anything, is probably just it's just a name. When I wrote No More Mr. Nice Guy, the identifying the quote nice guy, that was easy enough. Okay, and everybody's used that term, no more Mr. Nice Guy. And we've all said it, and so it's a common term, the nice guy. And I just gave it my own spin. But when I wrote I thought I was pretty close to finish writing the book. I sent it off to a professional editor. And he told me three things maybe that really helped a lot. All three of which I didn't like hearing when I first heard them. One, he said, the book's way too long. It has too many illustrations. You repeat yourself a lot. Okay. He says, you're about halfway done. And he says, you got to tell people what to do. It's a self-help book. And I go, I'm a therapist. You don't tell people what to do when you're a therapist. And he goes, it's a self-help book. That's where the breaking free activities came from, is that was not in my original writing. That came after the fact. And of course, that's what a lot of people really like a lot about the book, is those activities. The third thing was, you said, if you're helping people not be nice guys anymore, you've got to let them know what it is they're becoming. And I thought, oh, you're right. That's a good point too. And so, I struggled with, well, what do we call these people? And, nowadays, again, there's a lot going on out there with coaches on the internet, a lot of, so embodied man, conscious man, authentic man, integrated man, there's so many different terms that all really describe kind of the same thing. It's just being more conscious and self-accepting. So I came up with the term integrated male, that the integrated male is comfortable, with his dark side. He's comfortable with this part of it. He's just comfortable with all aspects of himself and can be that what you see is what you get kind of guy. And so I just kind of kept using that term integrated, in various things. So the TPI, total personal integration, I started creating classes. I want to give this university, quote university, a name. So TPI University, that sounds good enough. And in my workshops, I call them TPI workshops, total personal integration, meaning we'll talk about anything and everything. But it seems like the core kind of pillars of really having the kind of life we want, a masterful life, integrated life, it usually involves, some form of social mastery, some sort of personal mastery, some sort of relationship mastery, and some sort of career, professional mastery. And I found that if men can really address those issues using the concepts that I teach from No More Mr. Nice Guy, we can live pretty good lives. And it's worked for me anyway, and I've seen it work for a lot of guys. People recently, when people say, Robert, how you doing? And, my answer has been, I think I'm doing the best I've ever done in my entire life. I'm the happiest that I can recall being in my entire life. I'm 66 and, body's getting older, but mind still works. And I'm still, I'm creating new projects to, probably make me busier than I need to be. It's all with the idea this will let me retire at some point, but I don't want to retire. I like what I do. My relationship feels great. I have a wife that loves me dearly, that treats me well. Business is going well. Book royalties are great. I get to travel and have adventures. I have lots of guy friends. I'm in a men's program. I just like life is good. And I believe life is good because I've been following the principles that I lay out. And again, those principles for me have been be honest, be transparent, make your needs a priority, surround yourself with people that want to help you get your needs met. Be that what you see is what you get kind of guy. Live life on your terms. Ask yourself, what do you want? What's important to you? Be true to that. Follow through on that. Find people that can help you achieve your goals, your passions, your desire. Don't give your freedom away, which is another thing I do a lot of. I get in a relationship and it's kind of like I put a handcuff on one wrist, on mine, put the other handcuff on the woman's wrist, hand her the keys and say, okay, you have control over my freedom now. And then I resent her because I'm not free anymore. And it's ironic. I live in Mexico and I've had to learn Spanish because my wife doesn't speak English. I got to learn Spanish. I wanted to, so it's good. In Spanish, the word for wife is esposa. And so plural would be esposas. And ironically, the word for handcuffs in Spanish is esposas. And you can say that to a native Spanish-speaking person, and they'll go, you're right. They never put that together. Wives, handcuffs, same word. But the wives are not the fault. It's, we go we go give another person the free. So as I've worked on doing that, of not giving my personal freedoms away to anybody, to say, I'm here, I'm faithful, I want to be with you, and I'm not giving you control of my life. Because, I've done that too many times. And they don't want it. Well, some do. Some really do want to control your life, but don't give it to anybody.
Right.
And, and keep saying yes. Say yes to opportunity. Say yes to all these good things that keep coming. Usually we don't see all the open doors around us because we got these blinders on, but this is terrible, or I want this, or I don't want that. But all this good stuff is all around us. And an old friend of mine passed away a few years ago, used to say, it's a sin to say no when we should have said yes. So I've been using that as my personal mantra. I say yes a lot, and life just keeps getting better. So there's no one trick in all of this, but there are some pretty basic fundamental principles that, like I said, they should have taught us before we were 12. Let us have just, the most amazing life if we'll keep saying yes.
I love that you talked about having your most amazing life, because that's really what this project is for me. This podcast is about talking to people that educate, that I can share their message and help other people live their most amazing life. And so in doing that, I'm a big time on habits. There's things that if I do these things every single day, they certainly help me to make sure that I've set myself up for success in that day. And so I'm curious, maybe in closing, do you have habits or things that you do every single day, or let's just say regularly, that help you to have your best life?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think habits are crucial because we're habitual creatures, which is good. You and I don't want to reinvent shaving every day. It's good that we have a habit that tells us, how to shave. But our habits can become detrimental to us without us knowing it. And I think actually a really powerful recovery process is just to stop and take a look at your habits and say, what is one little habit I could incorporate into my life every day that would be the fractal of the bigger picture of how I want to live? Or what is one little habit I could remove from my life every day that would also be a fractal of changing the direction of where I want my life to go? Now, one habit that I started about 1.5 years ago, before we started recording, I let my dog into my room, and she's lying right down here at my feet, but she's a 1.5-year-old pit bull named Nala. And it's like, when this dog came into our life, into our family's life, everybody's like, how did we ever know love before we had this dog in our house? She's just an amazing creature. When she's a puppy, she needed to go outside a couple times a night to use the bathroom. And then that kind of got to where, okay, if we got up at 7 o'clock, that works. So for 1.5 years since we got her, coming up on 2 years, I get up every morning at 7 o'clock, go out. I live here in Mexico, so it's always warm. Wintertime is warm. I make my coffee. I go sit outside. Often I can watch the sun come up. I hear the birds. I can see clouds. It's the world's coming awake. I have a recliner chair. She has the recliner chair right next to mine. She knows her chair. I get to scratch her ears. She always lies next to me. I drink my coffee. I read my daily meditation book. I write in my journal. I can breathe, meditate a little bit, maybe start the work of my day, but it's my time. It's just quiet, meditative, affirming, just me and Nala. And, it's not till about 8:15, 8:30 that my wife will come out with her workout gear on and say, you ready to take the dog to the park? And let's do it. So then my day begins of doing. But prior to that, that's a habit that, oh man, I won't give up for anything. I mean, even if I was up late at night and the alarm goes off at 7 and I'm too tired, I get up. Because if I don't do it, I notice it. If I don't get up and if I miss that and like my day actually starts at 9 or 9:30, something's missing in my day.
Yeah.
It just doesn't feel right. That's a habit that has really been beneficial. Another habit I've made over the last few years is I make time to talk to my guy friends. I love that Zoom exists. I talk to guy friends every day. I'm in a number of different small groups where I meet with different guys. Tomorrow I'll talk to my best friend. Tomorrow evening, a guy that was in my program a couple of years ago is going to drop by and have dinner with us. Another friend of mine sent me an email this morning. Him and his wife are coming through Puerto Vallarta in June. Could they come by? And I said, yeah, come by for dinner, spend a night with us. So I make time to have men in my life, and that's transformed my life. It's transformed my relationship with my wife. She sees all these good men that I have in my life. I do workshops in my home here, so she'll see the men that come do the workshops, and she'll see these are good men. These are good men, and they look up to my husband. So that's been beneficial to have that. The other habit that I like to be fit, I like to be healthy, but I'm not a gym rat. In fact, I started writing a book last year that I'm about 3/4 through that it's on hold for a little bit called Gym Rat Mindset, to where you can have a minimal maximal approach. What's the least amount you can put in on a regular basis to get the most results out of it? So, and my wife's a gym rat. She's happiest if she can spend 2 hours a day in the gym working. She's killer, but that's her therapy. That's not me. I got to make myself do it. So some little habits that I do is that when I start working every morning, I have a stand-upright desk. So I'm usually standing up to work. So that's a good habit to get out of the chair. About the time I start working, I'll do about 4 or 5 minutes of a qi gong exercise of pounding on the door of life, where you just swing your body, you pound on your body a little bit. It's a habit that just kind of wakes me up and energizes me. And then I started recently something with a couple buddies of I will do 101 crunches and 101 push-ups every day, no matter what. And we check in with each other on it.
That's awesome.
And it's funny, it takes all of 5 minutes, maybe a little longer, depending, but it's like just that habit, 101. And sometimes I'll add 101 dumbbell curls and 101 stationary squats. And it's kind of like 10 minutes a day, but just doing that, I feel the difference in my body. And I feel more energized, more alive. And so habit, drinking more water, filling one of these up 4 times a day, habit. So sometimes it's those small habits that make such a big impact, because the big picture of our life is made from a bunch of small fractals. What are the smallest components of the greater picture of our life, for good or for bad? So if we can just change those little fractals in a consistent way, and that's all a habit is a repeated behavior over time. And so if we start changing those for good, life just keeps getting better. And again, just do it in little ways.
Yeah. I love that. I love that, that essentialism, that minimalistic kind of approach too. It's like people often want to jump to like the most perfect version, the most idea, this big, huge, extreme thing. And they don't realize that they would get similar results by just, just doing the minimum, the basics, so I love that message.
Yeah, I remember reading before my knees went bad, when I used to run, the doctor that started the aerobic clinic in Dallas, I can't think of his name right now, but he said, if you're running more than 2 miles a day, you're running for some other reason than health or fitness. That's all. You only need 2 hours or 2 miles.
Yeah.
2 miles a day is all you need to be perfectly healthy and fit, at least heart fitness.
Sure.
So yeah, we tend to overdo it. And what happens, that's where most procrastination comes in. We think, well, if I do it, I have to do it all right now and I have to do it perfectly. No, you don't. What if you just do a little bit right now and be done, and then do some more later? Makes it a lot easier.
Absolutely. Well, Dr. Glover, you're amazing wealth of knowledge and information. I have benefited personally from your wisdom, and I know that listeners and anyone who kind of checks in on this episode are also going to benefit from your wisdom. And I just appreciate you so much for being on the show today. And, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for the invitation. It was fun. And hopefully your listeners get a lot out of it.
Oh, I know they will. I appreciate you so much. And thanks for being on the show.